Alright guys, so welcome to this new video on how to use smart batch render. So I just want to test some Blender files. We try and render some Blender files, and I try to explain some settings. They are very simple. So before we start rendering anything, first we need to get a Blender file ready for rendering. So I have a very simple scene. So I call this test one, right? So this is just a camera movement. You can see the camera is dilating with animations. So just a camera movement. What else? So I have the scene ready. So let's check whether we have any extra settings to do. So there's the resolution, 100%, frame rate 24, and file format. We are going for FFmpeg video, but the encoding I chose Flash because I like the quality of the video. That's why I chose Flash. So I'm using the default settings, right? So maybe you can add audio to yours or not. You can choose to do that. So maybe you can try that. So let me add audio. There's no audio, but let me add it and see whether we get audio. So that's for the output. With a sample 64 for render, and nothing interesting here. So this is just a test for me to explain the settings in the app. Alright, so let's get straight to the app then. Alright, so let's try and get the app ready for rendering. So the first thing we have to do is select the Blender executable. So you select your Blender by clicking this. Then you navigate to where your Blender is saved. Alright, so let me skip this session. Alright, so I select the Blender executable, which is this one. Alright, then I click open. So now we have our location set. Alright. So the next thing is we can either save or load a session, right? So if you already have a session, we can load it. And another interesting thing is whenever you load a session, it automatically picks where the Blender file is located. So you don't have to be always trying to point where your Blender executable is. Alright, so the next thing we will do is add the Blender file. So we have these two options here to add a Blender file. So for the first option, add files, it's just the normal way of adding files. So the difference between the first button and the second button, the two options, is for the second button, you add, which is add directory. So for that one, you just need to select the parent folder of where all your Blender files are located, and the app will go through all the subfolders and load the Blender files, so that you don't do it, you don't spend time adding files one by one. So add files, you can use that to add files one by one. But with the second option, the app will search in your parent folder, search inside the subfolders, and load all the Blender files. So this button really saves time. We are going to use the add files, right? Okay, so let's add a file. So we are going to add this Blender file. The name of the Blender file is test1, right? All right, so this is test 1, so we add the test 1. Okay, next thing we are going to do is go into the settings and we make changes to the options we have there. Good. So the first option is output directory, right? So what this does is the app auto saves your session in case you forget to save it. Behind the scene, the app is auto saving everything we are doing. So the location it does the saving is the output directory. You can use this button to change the directory. Okay, and manually you can also save your session to a different location and it won't be overwritten by the autosave. So you just make sure you save your session to a different location. You save your session to a different location than this location, right? So that's the use of the output directory. Alright, the next options are file and image management, and we have these options. Use Blender file directory for outputs. So what this does is instead of saving the files, the rendered files in this location, right, inside Blender, the app will use the location of the Blender file. So the app will just create a folder. It will just create a folder at the location of the Blender file. Then it will save the file, the rendered files inside that folder. The next option we have here is delete image files after video creation. So this option is useful when you are making use of this option here. So we have the FFmpeg settings. So this is just an extra options to create a video file, right? So let's say we are rendering image sequence, let's say PNG. So after the rendering is done, you might want to watch, you might want to see how the video will look like, right? So maybe you have to go to Blender and load the image sequences, but to save time, you can just take this option here. Then after the rendering is done, the app, which is the smart batch render, will generate a video from the image sequences for you. So after generation, that is when this option comes in, whether to delete the image files after video creation or maintain them. So when I take it, it's going to delete the image files after video creation, right? Alright, so the next option is to override output file names with Blender file name. So if you don't want your sequence or the video file to have random numbers or names, you can use this option to save your image sequence with the name of the Blender file. This will help you for you to easily locate the Blender files, and the folders the app will create will bear this name to the name of the Blender file. So it will help in finding the correct videos, because they will be placed inside the right folders with the right names. Cool. So the next options we have here under render settings the first option is use settings from Blender file. So when this option is checked, the app will ignore all the settings here. The app is going to ignore all the settings here and use the default settings coming from the Blender file, right? Because we have our file already set up, we've already made some changes here. We have the frame rate already set, we have the resolution already set, we have the output format, the file format already set, right? So we are good to go without using the settings from the app here. So if you don't want to do that, if we don't want to use the options here, we just have to take this so that the app will use the settings from the Blender file. Okay, so this is useful in other situations too. Example is like, let's say you are rendering multiple files, right, and they are all going to use the same resolution, the same frame rate, the same render device, the same output format, and the same samples. Then you don't need to check this because they are using the same settings for render. This saves you time from going to do all these changes in each Blender file. All the settings here override the settings in the Blender file so that you don't do it multiple times. So let's say you have 80 Blender files or 20 Blender files, and they should all have the same settings, right? You have to do it manually, right? So you can use the app and do it once, and all these settings will be applied to all the Blender files in the list here. Okay, so if the files you are rendering, they all have a different resolutions, they all have a different frame rate, they are all using different output formats, then you have to take this so that the app will respect the Blender files render settings. Alright, so the next options we have here is the FFmpeg settings. So like I said previously, this option helps you to create a video from image sequences without going back to Blender to create the video yourself. Alright, so this time, for you to use this option, you first have to make sure you have FFmpeg installed on your machine, right? So you can just search FFmpeg on Google or maybe YouTube. There are videos to get it installed on your machine. It's just a simple thing, so you can just do that if you want to create videos from the image sequences you create. So this is just a bonus option for you guys. You have the settings here to change the codec, lower, better, so you can choose different values for this one to preset slow, that works okay. Tune, we have frame, this two works okay, so you can change it to a different options here. The same, we have different options here too, you can change that. So by default the options are okay, they work fine, so you can maintain these options, and we are going to use the default options. Now that we have went through the settings here, let's test some settings. So that then the first option I want us to test is use settings from Blender file, right? So let's go back to our Blender file and let's confirm these options. So we are saving in FFmpeg video, which will be a flash video, right, with a frame rate of 24, and this is the resolution. Okay, cool. Because we are rendering in a video, there's no need to use this option here. So we are going to use this option, use Blender file directory for output, so that we can easily locate our file. Alright, and we are using, of course, we are using this option, use settings from Blender file, meaning the file we are going to get from the app is a video file, because we are saving the file in the video format. Okay. Let's do our first test render, right? Alright, so I think that's all. So we will just click OK. Cool. We just click OK. So we can choose to disable this. We can choose to disable it because we are not going to use this. because once you are rendering, it's already a video, so there's no need to use this, right? So we can save it. Okay, then we can start our file, but let me display this. All right, cool. So let's start the rendering. So we are rendering test 1, which is the file we made the changes to. Our testing test 1, a video file, a flash file, frame rate 24. All right, good. But remember to confirm we are not using the settings from the app. You can just choose a different frame rate just to confirm you are not using the settings from the app. So let's choose 28. Let's say 28. Okay. So if we are indeed using the settings from the Blender file, we should get the frame rate from the Blender file, which is 24. That's it. We can save it and then we start rendering. What I will just do is just click start processing, right? So you can see immediately it creates a folder and it starts rendering. Cool. So let's see what's in the folder. Good. So now you can see it's saving a video file. So we have the name test1 and the frame, start frame to the end frame. Okay. All right. So these are files the app creates for referencing. Alright, cool. So rendering is done, right? So we are in the folder the app created, which is test1 renders, right? So inside the folder we have frames.txt and we have renderinfo.txt and we have the render file, the video file. Alright, so you can choose to delete this file. You can choose to delete this file. So this file is just, the app just references the values here, right? So just in case you want to render the same Blender file again, because of this file, the app will consider that file to be already processed, so you can't render it. So you just delete it. If you want to render a Blender file again, you just have to delete this file. So let me test this thing. Let me show you how it works. So we added the test1 again. So let's click start processing. So you see, as soon as we click the start processing, we get this option, processing complete, right? And it's because of this file, because you can see that all frames are rendered. It's comparing the last rendered frame with the end frame from the Blender file, right? So for you to render a Blender file again, you just have to delete this one, right? You just have to delete it and you can render it again. Okay, cool. So let's check our video file. Now we are not going to use this option anymore. So we are going to tell the app to use the app settings, app render settings, right? So we will maintain 1920 1080 frame rate. We are going to use 28. So again, let's confirm whether the video used the right frame rate. So you can see we have 24 frame rate, right? So we actually use the correct frame rate. we actually use the correct frame rate from the blender file. Okay. Alright, cool. So now we are going to use the settings here. We are going to stick with PNG, so you can choose different image formats: PNG, JPEG, ESR, TIFF, MP4. Right. Let's use PNG, and the samples, let's stick with 6.4. Alright, 6.4. So because we are rendering image sequences, let's create a video after the rendering is done. So we are going to take this option, right? I think that's all. For now, that's all. So let's just click OK. Then let's add our file back. So remember previously when I tried to render, I got processing complete, right? So because now we have deleted the frames.txt, the app should render the file again, right? So now I'm going to click start processing, and you can see a new frames.txt is created, and now we have the images being created, so we can view the images and confirm everything is running perfectly. Alright, so remember we've already selected the option to change to convert video to create a video from the images. So let's see whether that works too. So at the end we should have two different videos here, and of course everything is done in the same folder, test1 folder. So the rendering is done and all the images are rendered, right? So when we scroll down, we should see a video file, and this is the video file. So let's open the video file, and we can see the video is playing. So this is the video created from the image sequence. Alright, so that's for you. Alright, so let's say you want to delete all the images, right? You have multiple Blender files rendered and they all have image sequences. Now you don't want the image sequences, you want to delete them, you don't want to do it manually. You can just go to settings, then you enable this option, right? Then you click OK. But before we click on start processing, make sure you've added the Blender files back in. Make sure you've added the Blender file back in. So automatically when you are rendering multiple files, or any file which is done rendering is removed from this box. Alright, so right now we have the file added back, right? Basically the reason we added the file back is just to point the rendering app the right location to delete the image files. Okay, so now when we click on start processing, it will just go through the files and delete the images. Good. So you can see the images are deleted now, and now we have our video working all right, and we have our first video too working all right. Cool. So we can check so we have 1920 28. So we have the frame rate of 28 here, and we can confirm we use 28 frame rate here. Okay. All right. So that's it for rendering. Another thing you have to take notice: whenever there are files rendering, the files is automatically removed from the Blender files box when they are done rendering. So whenever all files are done, it should be empty. Alright, and another thing is you can change the theme. Okay, so you can change the theme to different themes. So sometimes I prefer using Cosmo. You can change it to any theme you prefer. Alright, so by default we are using superhero, so you can change it to a different theme. Okay. So that's the theme. So whenever you save a section, it saves the theme too, right? Whenever you save a section, it saves it. So let's do this. Let's add a new Blender file. Let's add these two Blender files. Okay. Then let's delete this folder because we want to do the rendering again. So you are going to delete it, move to trash. So after deleting, let's make some changes here. Let's delete images after video creation, and we are going to use the settings from the app because the Blender files uses the same settings here, so we want to use the settings from the app. So we are using the render settings from the app, and also we are going to enable video creation here. Okay, cool. All right, so I think that's all. We click on OK. So the reason we are rendering too fast this time is we want to test these options here. So we have a Blender file limit, right? For this version I'm using, the Blender file limit is 20. So I can add 20 Blender files. That's the limit for the app, right? Per an instance. So an instance means I can open multiple app, right? So you can see we have max app instance, so we can open the app 10 times, right? Basically the limit is Blender file limit value times the max app instance. Alright, so the next thing we are going to do is we are going to try and render multiple files, right? So we have test 1 and test 3, right? This time we are going to use the settings from the app, right? So we have this option disabled so that we can use the settings here. So we have this option disabled, so we are going to use the settings here. So all the files will be rendered with 28 FPS, CPU, samples 64, output format PNG. So because we are rendering images, we are going to use this option here to create a video from the images, right? The next thing is we have this option on so that it deletes the images after video creation. I think that's all, so I click on OK. So this is just to see how it processes multiple files when rendering. Alright, so I think we can just click start processing and everything. Good, so we have test 1 started, so you can check the folder. Alright, so the rendering is done. So it's creating the video, and the video is created. So you can see after the video was created, it removed that Blender file. We are now rendering test 3, which is this one, and also you can see it here. Current process, you can see test 3, and the frame, you can see the values are changing. Alright, so we can go back and check the test 3 folder. So we can see a folder is created for test 3, and these are the images it's creating. Good, so we have our video here. Our message we have here is processing complete 2/2. Okay, we have 2 folders. This, which is the video, and we have this, which is the video of test 3. So that's it for rendering multiple files. So you can see after all the files were rendered and video creation was done, the file got removed, right? Alright, so you will, whenever the file is not removed, it's likely because you have disabled this option. So it will still maintain the file when this option is disabled in the Blender files box. The last options we can talk about are the options below here. So we have Blender file limits. Alright, so this current version I'm using level 7. So we have different levels of the app: level 1, level 2, level 3, up to 7. Alright, so each level has its own Blender file limits, its own max instance and resume attempts, right? So for the Blender file limits, basically you can't add more than 20 files in the app, right? So when you try to load more than 20 files, the app will load exactly 20 files and ignore the rest. So that's the limit. You can load it, and it will give you a pop-up message that's all the files were not loaded, only 20 files were loaded. Okay, and for the max app instance, so for level 7, you can open this rendering app 10 times, right? So let's say you have about 200 Blender files to render, right? You can just open this app 10 times and load the Blender files. So you can load 20, in each Blender file, then you render them. And the cool thing is, because you can open the Blender file 10 times, you can render all the files at the same time. You can start processing all the files at the same time. So that was the big reason I didn't want to do everything in just one app instance. So this is just one app instance, right? So if I load, let's say if I load 20 files here, and I click start processing, it's going to process them one by one. But if we have multiple app instances, right, we are going to start rendering multiple Blender files at the same time. Okay, so let me show you how it's done. Alright, so we have two instances opened. This is where the max app instance comes in, right? So there's a second app. We can see we still have the log messages. So this we are still using the same instance we used previously, right? Let's add different files. Okay, so we have added test 1 here for this one, so let's add test 3 for this one. Alright, so we have test 3 for this instance. So we have two instances, 1 and 2. Also remember to run the app as administrator, just to allow the app to create the render files, like to save the render files on your decks. Just in case you are having that issue, just run the app as administrator. Okay, on Windows. All right. So that was just by the way. So right now we have the app loaded. We have 2 versions loaded. Same app, 2 instances. So remember our limit is 10 max app instances. We have 2, right? So like I was saying, the advantage of running double instances is you can render multiple files at the same time, right? We can just make the settings for, because the second instance is a new one. Let's quickly do the settings. 24. We can just maintain the settings here. Yeah, then we click OK. All right. So in case you want to re-render a Blender file, just go to that Blender file folder and delete the folder, or simply delete these files. Okay, because the app used those files as references to know where to resume, what to resume, and when to stop. Okay, so it's just 2 values or 2 files, but it's really used for calculations in the app. All right. So now, since I mentioned resume, let's take this opportunity to test the resume capabilities of the app. Okay. First, let's delete these options here. Move to trash, and maybe we can do this just to see what's happening. All right, so let's test the resume option here, the resume capabilities of the app. So the max resume attempt is 25. So every Blender file can resume 25 times. So this resume option is really powerful. So to test the resume capabilities, what we can do, right? So whenever you are using the app to render and it detects a crash, the app will automatically open the Blender file again and continue rendering from where the crash happened. So we have max resume attempt of 25, right? So the app will resume 25 times for every single Blender file. right? So you might not even notice Blender crashed. It's so fast, and automatic. That version is level 7, so the max resume attempt is 25 here. So for each Blender file, the resume attempt is 25 times. So let's say you are rendering multiple files and one Blender file exhausts its resume attempts, which is 25 times. The app will just simply move to the next Blender file, and that file will also have 25 resume attempts. So it's not shared for the Blender files here, right? So the resume attempt is only applied to each single Blender file. So every Blender file has 25 resume attempts, right? So let's test some situations where the app rendering process gets interrupted. So we are going to test with test 3, right? So currently we have a Blender process in the background, so that's actually the Blender we've opened, right? So maybe I can close this so that we get rid of that process. So now we have that process removed. Cool. All right, so now we don't have any Blender process running in the background. All right, so let's start processing test 3. So test 3 has started and we have the frames rendering, right? We have the frames rendering. Also, currently the last frame rendered is 7, so you can reference the last frame here. You can reference it from here. So we are rendering test 3 and the last frame is 12. So let's see what happens when we end the process of the rendering over here. So we are not ending the process of the app, we are ending the process of Blender in the background, because Blender is always the one which crashes when rendering. So let's say we end the process, we kill it. So we are around 24, 25. So let's kill it. And immediately the app will open the Blender file again and resume. So we can see we have resumed from 27, right? And when we check, we can see everything is being rendered in the folder of that Blender file, right? So again, you can end the process and it will still resume. Okay, you can end the process again and it will still resume. So let me cancel it and you will see that whenever the rendering is interrupted and it's resuming, it shows this information. So because it was that fast, you might not see, but you'll see that the app will say resuming from frame 44, last rendered frame was 43. Alright, so in case you want to understand what's happening, you can just go and read whatever the log is saying, right? And also you can see the attempts, how many attempts the Blender file has tried. So we have 4 attempts out of 25, right, for test 3. So you can see the messages are very clear for you to understand too. The log messages are very, very clear. So that's the resume attempt for you. And the resume attempt is also very powerful when rendering with image sequences too. It's very, very powerful. Alright, so the next thing I want us to talk about is the max app instances, right? So for the max app instances, it's actually based on the level you are using. So currently I'm using level 7, so the limit for max app instances is 10, right? So right now I have 2 instances opened. Okay, so for each instance we have a Blender file loaded, right? So we have 1 and 3. Okay, so the good thing about instances, so the advantage of using instances is you can render multiple Blender files at the same time, right? So right now we have multiple files in different app instances. So now let me first delete this folder so that we don't resume from the last frame. Alright, so we don't have any folder here. So now when I click on, and remember we don't have any Blender process running too. So when I click on start process for tester 1, you can see rendering has started and we are on frame 1, it's rendering. Right, so like I was saying, if we were using one instance, we have to wait for test 1 to finish rendering before the app goes to the next Blender file. But now that we have another instance opened, we can just render the other Blender file by just clicking start processing. And you can see we have multiple folders here, right? So both of them will be running and rendering will be processing for both files. So you can see now we have 2 Blender files here, and I can choose to end any of them and it's going to resume without any issue. Okay, so everything is running perfectly without any interruption. Alright, so we have all instances rendering done. So you can see we have all the rendering done, right? So we can go to the folders and we see we have our video here and we have our video here. Cool. So that's the max app instances for you. Alright, so one last thing I want us to talk about is the theme. So you can change the theme to different themes. So you can just click this, or you can just scroll to see different themes. So let's see, you have different, so you choose whatever you like. You can go for dark mode, different themes. So that was just by the way, if you want to use different themes, because sometimes you just feel like using a different theme. It doesn't change your render, but you just feel like using a different theme. So yeah, and the last info you have is my contact. So you can contact me using my email or YouTube. I might be posting, it's very likely I'll be posting a lot of tutorials on the app and maybe some tricks and tips and other tutorials too on other works. Check some of my videos. I'm planning on doing live streams too, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. So this is it. This is smart batch render. We have different levels from level 1 to level 7 with different prices. I wanted to provide a very low price so that any artist can still enjoy this app. So the last level is a studio version, so for that one you can contact me for a special app version for you. You can contact me on that. So yeah, and the link to purchase the app is in the description, so you can go to the description and you can head to the site to purchase any level you want. And thank you very much for your support, and subscribe for more videos.